Hey folks, it's a late video today. I don't know how long it's going to be. I am a little drunk, so hopefully not too long, because otherwise it'll get pretty incoherent, and it won't be very long till that happens. But there was good news and bad news from today's Dallas Cowboys versus Arizona Cardinals game in Arizona. It was, first of all, a Cowboys victory. Second of all, the Anthem protest over there. Really a bizarre situation, and I don't know what to think about it. Now, initially coming in, it was rumored that there would be a protest or some sort of gesture on the part of the Cowboys. I happen to think that these teams just have to kind of focus more on the game, focus on what you came out there to do. And if you came out there to protest, then there's going to be less people who care about staying to watch. And that's exactly what it looked like for about the first quarter and a half. The Cowboys certainly looked like they were asleep, and the Cardinals looked like they were in control. Now, as for the protest itself, what happened is that the Cardinals and the Cowboys decided that they are going to kneel before the national anthem, not during the national anthem, but before it. So, very interesting choice, because technically most of these issues that are cropping up about the national anthem controversy with the NFL and Colin Kaepernick, they have to do with people protesting, kneeling down or sitting or not even appearing on the sideline during the national anthem. Well, technically they didn't do that because they were standing at attention, and in many cases, well, I think they were linking arms during the national anthem, which if you're one of those purists, you're only supposed to stand with your hand on your heart and your helmet under your left shoulder or something like that. That's what a lot of these purists say is the way to stand for the anthem. I'm not one for really talking about etiquette, so I'll leave that to somebody else. I just think that is that technically they took part in the protest without actually protesting. And it's an ambiguous situation. It will leave a lot of people confused as to where this protest is going. Is the protest really about police brutality and the death of black men in police shootings, or is it generally a middle finger to the United States and its flag? That's what is at stake in this argument. Now, a lot of the anthems, the protest supporters say, oh, it doesn't have anything to do with veterans. It doesn't have anything to do with the flag. It doesn't have anything to do with the anthem. This is just us bringing attention to this cause. And I'd like to remind them that at this point, nobody's really taking it that way. Sure, there are about 4 or 5 players that are genuinely making a coherent argument about it. Those are Anquan Bolden. I think Bolden plays for not San Diego, Arizona at the moment. Smart guy. Richard Sherman, Marshawn Lynch, I think also, but he's not a very vocal person. He's kind of the silent protest guy. Has always had problems with NFL. And once again, let me reiterate here that I think that technically there's not really much that I could say that would be, oh, you can't really do this, because I am a First Amendment freedom of speech absolutist as much as possible. I don't know. Well, I guess technically that wouldn't make me an absolutist, but I'm really in favor of the First Amendment. So okay, so these players want to protest the flag. Well, when you do see these dropping numbers of fans, or you see people booing, hear people booing, or you see people just not paying attention, and there's less chatter about the actual game going on the internet or in public spaces. There's that rum kicking in. Sorry about that. When you have that type of effect going on due to your protest, then it's the effect diminishes, and even how much more so now that Jerry Jones pulled off what I like to call a Gladio moment. Now, if you watch some of these live streams that I do, American Gladio, what was Gladio? Gladio was a stay-behind operation, a lot of false flag operations in Europe by the CIA during the Cold War, where they were setting up things to look like what they weren't, to look like things that they weren't, perpetrating terror attacks, enabling terror groups in order to justify more tight security and deeper police state, a deeper surveillance state, I should say. Yeah, so that's a Gladio moment. It's false flag. It's just doing things for show, so people think that you're doing one thing when you're really doing another. Well, what Jerry Jones did today could be technically, and I don't know if you'll agree with me, a Gladio moment, because he did kneel on the fucking field and looked like an idiot, which he's very good at, without actually protesting. And it has the potential to piss off both sides, which I think is perfectly fine. As much as, I'm actually not a fan of Jerry Jones. I think that he's done a lot to ruin the reputation of the team over the years through his reckless behavior and his lack of, and I think Jerry Jones, if people want somebody who's more of a reckless moron than Alec Baldwin, if people want to criticize Donald Trump, you should take a look at what Jerry Jones has done with his life. The man's a nutcase. I think he fired a two-time Super Bowl winning head coach, Jimmy Johnson, while he was coked up in a Miami nightclub because of an ego fight. But what he did today could be either a weasel move, in which case people are going to be like, oh, this guy's a moron, fuck him. He thinks he can pretend to protest. Well, he's still protesting. Or it's really a kind of a genius move, because if he can kneel on the field without actually protesting the anthem, which is exactly what he did, then the whole thing is fucking meaningless. All they did was publicly, they called it a show of unity between the Cardinals players and the Dallas players. Now, today, I'm not going to get into the rest of the game. I am going to say that the Cowboys did recover very well and ended up having 4 touchdowns and winning. But, given the atmosphere right now, I don't think people are very interested in that. But I did see that after the game, the players seemed to have a genuine, they had a good atmosphere between them, the Cardinals and Dallas players. Larry Fitzgerald and Jason Witten, 2 future Hall of Famers, greeted each other on their way off the field. Had a very, it looked like they really appreciated the, each other's company, which I think is better than having people angry all the time. Whatever your political views, I think it's better to have players that are, getting along, having a civil discourse between them, than to have, just this constant bullshit on TV. People feuding over nothing. And in the case of politics, isn't that also the case? Well, why should people hate each other just because they have different politics? For example, my guest that one time, Esperanza, the teacher, if you want to look at that episode, she's a full progressive, a Bernie Sanders supporter. I've never really had any bad interactions with her. I happen to think that she's a pretty intelligent person. Just we have completely different outlooks on a number of key issues, but we can live with each other. And I saw a few memes today that were attacking President Trump or making fun of him, and some of them were funny. So I didn't object to them. I said, hey, it's a funny meme. I don't think that there's a problem with that. I think that ultimately, though, this is a very good long-term move for Donald Trump with his insult towards the players during the anthem. And I'll explain to you why. And it's not the players' fault either. necessarily. They're kind of being herded into this protest by a media that is just slavishly devoted to pushing a political agenda that its audience doesn't really give a fuck about. But let me explain the strategy here. Unlike with performance art, okay, so many of the protests that you've seen so far by celebrities have been by musicians, have been by TV stars, have been by people at the box office, film, some people that are in theater, I guess, all sorts of people that are, in the performance arts. Now, in that case, when you have a performance artist, let's say Lena Dunham, she is always talking out her ass about Donald Trump. Well, I mean, Lena Dunham's core audience, these people who are, they're into her show, girls, they're not really going to care necessarily. I mean, first of all, there's probably not that big of a proportion of them that oppose her political views. But even if they were, they like the show. They like the artistic performance. Okay, so, and there is no conflict there. So they, on their part, are perfectly willing to either disregard the protest or the statement by the artist, Lena Dunham, or fully support it. So, it's a win-lose situation for, somebody opposing the protest, somebody opposing that statement. Donald Trump. If he's going up against that audience, he's going up against that audience. Or against that, he's going up against that artist, he's going up against their audience. Well, how is it in sports? You have in most competitions two opponents. In the Olympics, though, I mean, you could have 10 people in a race or whatever it is. I don't know how many it is. I think in track, what is it, 6 people? Track and field. So, but in team sports, you typically will have, and in all the major sports, you have 2 sides for every game, such that if you have a situation where there are 2 teams that are both participating in this protest, the Kaepernick protest, or whatever you want to call it, the Anthem protest. If you have 2 teams and they are both protesting, then you have 2 fan bases that are showing up. They both want something out of the game. They don't want to come to the game to see the protest. They want to see a victory. So at the end of the game, you're always going to have at least one fan base, at least one part of the audience that is not going to be happy with what they saw on the field. Forget about the protest. They are not going to be happy with what they saw out of their team in terms of the performance. So this actually happened in London this Sunday with the Jaguars versus the Ravens. And the Ravens got their asses kicked. Both of the teams knelt in unison during the national anthem and then stood during God Save the Queen, which is the British national anthem. Nothing against the British, but you're kind of making a statement when you stand for the national anthem of a country that we won our independence from. But beyond that, that was a situation where both fan bases are in areas where the politics is really a secondary issue. Ravens fans, yes, Baltimore does have a severe issue where fans, or not fans, but residents are dealing with police community violence. Okay, so technically, let's assume that there are a lot of people in Baltimore that would support the protest. Jacksonville, however, is more in an area that is rural and supports, the other side, the people that are, let's say, pro-flag, pro-military, pro-first responders. Whatever the case, this was a no-win situation for the protesters in the end because the Ravens got absolutely obliterated. Jaguars won. It was an embarrassment on the field. It was, when it's a blowout game, people are not going to keep watching anyway. So people probably tuned out. I took a look at it on my phone. I was like, this game is not even going to be interesting. So you tune out, and that's what people do. First of all, it's a boring game. Second of all, you have one fan base is totally psyched by the victory, but at some point they don't care either, so they tune out. The other fan base is completely pissed off, not necessarily because of the protest, but because their team sucks. So they start to get this creeping in their mind. And believe me, even the protest supporters might have this in the back of their mind subconsciously and saying, are they really focusing on what they're supposed to be doing there on the field? Or are they focusing on some sort of gesture that they're making for public gratification? I think this is something that's really an issue. And you saw it yesterday. The Pittsburgh Steelers are getting like a huge amount of flack right now from their fan base because of the vocal position of a lot of their players, or the entire team, rather, including Coach Mike Tomlin, regarding the protest. Okay? A lot of their fans are saying, you know what? Fuck this. Fuck this. We didn't come here in order to just watch a group of people kneel and then lose a game in embarrassing fashion. So you have one player on that team, the guy who did stand for the anthem, who's getting a great amount of support from a different public, people who are for the anthem. And let's see here. You have James Harrison. What did he say? James Harrison was one of these hardcore, predatory. Let's see. James Harrison responds to the drama by lifting weights. Very interesting. There's all this clickbait going on. Here's a few comments. This is about Mike Tomlin, the Steelers coach, and I'll try to give I'm not going to dox people, but I'll give the names of these people just to show what people thought of the protest. So Mike Tomlin was the coach, and this is the reaction to him basically saying, oh, people were supposed to be in the protest. So this guy, Ramirez, says, Tomlin's pride took over because he wanted to show up Trump. Big mistake. You don't bite the hand that feeds you, and it definitely isn't Goodell who feeds them. It's the fans. And there's some people saying there's no law that says you have to stand for the anthem. That's true. We're not talking about laws, though. We're talking about how will this play? How will this play out? Whose advantage is it? This is a chess game. Don't talk to me about legality. We can talk about legality on other issues. This isn't really an issue about legality. And this guy, his last name is Wilson. He's responding to somebody else. He says, yup, all just a big misunderstanding. But you're right. It's a bullshit situation. And wait until they trot out there to the next home game to a half-empty stadium. Then this person, first name Jerry Lynn, this ridiculous. Football players are a team, which means they should be a team in unity when they play a ball. If a player decides to do the opposite and not be a team in unity, they need to consider another source of employment. NFL is for the people's enjoyment, not for making a statement on the field. That's what protesting is for. Do it on your own time. NFL players get paid tons of money a year, paid by who? Us, for our enjoyment. We don't want to see protesting. We want to see a ball game. So these are Steelers fans, and the Steelers fans aren't necessarily the most, liberal. I think Pittsburgh's in kind of a sweet spot. There was a lot of progressives in the Pittsburgh area, but it's also in coal country. Then you have people saying, I will be boycotting the Steelers and the entire NFL. I have no respect for any of them. This guy says, lift away, asshole. Can't stand for the flag. Get out of the country. Somebody says, love my Steelers. And then they have this picture of this World War II vet that supports the protest. This guy Daniel, Hispanic last name, says, "What a bunch of dumb fucks you all are." This other guy, Martinez, not watching this season. They screwed up. I don't know how much people really care. Maybe these are just trolls. I don't know. I think though, um, I think that people are really giving um, people are really giving a lot of rope to hang themselves on this issue. Okay, um, the idea is, like I said, with every game there are two sides. There's a winner and a loser. So the losing side, if you have a lot of people protesting, and the whole week after that, remember, football is 1 day a week. So the whole week after that, you have a lot of fans calling into talk radio or talking in bars or talking at work. And God knows at my job, people talk all week. And they ask, what are these assholes focused on? Should we even be attending these games? Even if they're not angry, if their team keeps losing week after week and participating in the protests, then people are just going to stop caring. They're going to say, well, what's the point of this? I don't tune in to a game to see a protest. First of all, if the protest is the same thing every time, then people are just going to lose interest because it just there's no real suspense in it. It used to be, I'd tune in. There's this Golden State Times channel. Maybe some of you watch it. They show every Trump speech. At a certain point, it was like, well, a lot of these speeches are kind of the same, so I'm just not going to watch them. I mean, what's the point? I hear the same thing every time. Once in a while, it's a little entertaining, but not so much. So ultimately, you have to remember this detail, though. There are a couple teams that are really in the wheelhouse of being major. I want to say a major hole in the hull of the NFL if they continue to suck and be involved in the protests in whatever way possible. These are teams that haven't won yet, and that they are basically gasping for any sort of positive public attention. You have the LA Chargers. I almost slipped the tip of the tongue there. I thought the team belonged to the people of San Diego. I guess I was wrong. There's the San Francisco 49ers, and then there's the New York Giants. And you could probably throw in the Cleveland Browns and, I think the Raiders would be a good example to a certain extent. These are teams that they are in the crosshairs of major public anger because of their bad performance lately. The Raiders more so this past week. But think about it this way. You have the New York Giants and the San Francisco 49ers and the LA Chargers all in major markets, and they have 0 wins. And are people really interested in any sort of protest going on? They're not. And the NFL, which has been kind of locating its teams lately in order to rake in more revenue because there is more people in LA, obviously, than there is in St. Louis or San Diego. If they don't have people coming to the games, then there's no fucking point. If they don't have people tuning into the games, then there's no fucking point. If these teams become sort of like the Brooklyn Nets of football, kind of an embarrassment and a source of ridicule for their cities, then they're in a huge crisis when it comes to their public image. And that's exactly what's happening. The Giants blew a lead late in the game on Sunday after they came back from a huge deficit. So they blew the lead and they lost. That's going to really turn the heat up on their coach and possibly lead to a meltdown. Now, their owner, Steve Tisch, and John and his co-owner, John Mara, they both commented very strongly against Donald Trump's statement about the NFL. Well, guess who the Giants fans are going to give a fuck about? They're not going to side with these owners that deliver them a shitty team. They're just not. I don't care how. I mean, even if they don't support Donald Trump. Here, let me look at their page. Here, this guy, Belfay, last name, you lost a diehard fan, and so did the NFL. This other guy, Corzo. I thought they had some class. It's pretty obvious they don't by the way they acted and how they talk or type. Like it or not, he is your president. This is America. Okay. Then there's this other person who stood with the players, and it says, somebody's talking about how the veterans do get dumped at the curb, that this isn't an issue of veterans. Then this one person, Kathleen, says, they lost a fan in me. No American should disrespect the country in that way. The brave men and women that defend the flag and the players' freedom not be disrespected like that. By the way, all life matters. Misspelled. Life and matters instead of matters. Been a Giants fan since '63. This is Dennis. John Mara and Stephen Tisch have no balls, along with their half-ass assistant coach has been McAdoo. No balls to take action for the I think responsibility for the actions of Beckham, because he runs the team. He's never been disciplined or anything. So that's a little more into the team. And a person saying, I'm tired of all the so there's a lot of people who are saying, this is Giants fans. Okay, so this is a liberal state, two liberal states, New Jersey and New York, and Connecticut, if you want to throw in the rest of the tri-state area. They don't think that this anthem thing is really resonating with them. You have a lot of people who are Giants fans who this isn't resonating with them. Now, I'm not going to go through all the teams, but I can imagine that in San Francisco, which is 0-3, there's plenty of people saying, fuck this. We're not even going to the games anyway. By the way, the San Francisco-LA game from Thursday, this was before the Trump controversy. Less than half the stadium was full. Then you have the San Diego Chargers. They're playing in a joke of a stadium. It's like 30,000 people. This league is basically jumping into a volcano week after week. They don't even need Donald Trump. I'll tell you what, they don't even need Donald Trump for this to happen. He has basically pushed their cart into the volcano. So that's about it. I want you to think a little about those themes. I have to go. It's getting a little late. Please let me know what your thoughts are. I will look at the chat for a second now. Omar America Adams. Great show. Well, thanks, man. And that's about it. So I guess I'll end on a high note. So thanks, guys. And, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. And, I don't think that this is going to disappear very soon, but it's clearly not getting any more interesting. I think Jerry Jones kind of let the air out of the whole protest, or maybe it wasn't even him. Maybe it was his players and the Arizona Cardinals players. If they're not technically protesting the anthem, is it even a protest? I don't know. You tell me. See you guys later.